Welcome back to Dirty 20. Today we're talking pretty dice. Welcome back, guys, and today we're going to be talking about dice. Now, just for anyone who's kind of new to the party, for D&D there's a specific dice that you have to use in order to play D&D. And they are a D20. Your D20 is going to be the dice that you use the most. It's whenever you need to make an attack roll or an ability check, that's the dice that you're going to be using. Then you have a D12. The D12 is the one you're going to be using the least. Very few times will you be using a D12. I think certain weapons have that with damage, but very rare. Then you have a D10 and a D100. They look exactly the same. The only difference is that on the D10, you just have from a 0 to a 9, 0 being 10. And then on a D100, you have 2 digits. So it'll be 00, 10, 20, 30, 40, all the way up to 90. And that's for percentages. Sometimes there's certain tables where they'll ask you to roll a D100, but they'll very specifically say that. So when you're asked to roll a D100, you get both your D10 and your D100. You roll them together, and you have the D100 for the tens and the D10 for your single digits. If I roll both dice and I get a 30 on my D100 and a 5 on my D10, then I combine them and that is now 35. So it's a percentile die. Now if you roll all zeros, that equals 100. Then you've got your D8, a D6 and a D4. That is your standard RPG dice set. Now, we're going to be talking about some different manufacturers and stuff like that, but a lot of sets that you buy will have one of each. Now that's fine and it's cool because that's kind of all you need. If you need to roll 2 d20s when you're using advantage or disadvantage, then you can just roll one twice. However, some people like to have 2. Also the case for d6s. When it comes to character creation, you roll either 3d6 or 4d6. Some people like to have all 4 that you can roll at once. Again, not necessary. But dice are a very interesting thing because it's the one thing that RPG players will purchase regularly, on a whim even. When I worked at a local gaming store, it was, we would have D&D books and they would, sell periodically, miniatures as well. But dice was always something that people wanted. Some people like to have just a massive collection of dice. Laura Bailey, who is famous from Critical Role, she will literally grab a giant bag of dice and start rolling all her dice to see which ones are hot to then use during the session. There's all kinds of superstitions around dice, and people can get a little bit crazy. People blame the dice for a lot of the terrible decisions they make, but generally speaking, they're a nice accessory that you can get specifically to match your character, which is what I like to do. When I'm building a new character, I like to maybe get a new set of dice. So you do eventually kind of gather a lot of dice over time. Now, to talk about some of the kind of manufacturers, you have the official D&D Wizards of the Coast dice sets. I'll be honest, some are better than others. I think they've slowly improved the sets. I think about the Guildmaster's Guide to Ravnica set came out. I was not impressed at all. The latest set that came out, which is the Descent into Avernus, that is a really nice set. First of all, you get 2 d20s and 4 d6, which, as I mentioned earlier, is nice for character creation and during gameplay. Also, they're very legible. Now, this is hugely important. If you're going out to buy a dice set and you find a really cool set with dwarven runes or elvish script, make sure that you can read them from afar. Because the number of dice that I've seen people buy which are genuinely useless is unbelievable. Legibility, hugely important. You also, with the Descent into Avernus dice, get a dice tray, a dice box, so to speak, which is really nice, velvet lining, it's what you can roll your dice into, which again, different little accessories that you can get, which I love getting myself, spending all that money. But those are the kind of the standard dice. There's also a 25th, the Sapphire Anniversary set. I think it's a 40-year anniversary dice set. Beautiful, absolutely gorgeous, but it costs $299 for a dice set. That is outrageous. Different people would be willing to spend different things on dice. I would say that if you're spending $10, then you're buying a decent set of dice, maybe with one of each, and that's it. But they'll be good enough. Another thing about the special edition anniversary Sapphire dice set is that they're metallic. Now, I have my issues with metal dice. I think that I'm not crazy about them. You roll them, they make a not the most satisfying thunk kind of noise, and they can honestly damage maps and things that your table that you're rolling on. So I'm not crazy about metallic dice in general. I have seen hollowed out metallic dice. Again, cool. I don't know if it's the kind of thing that I would spend a lot of money on, and they do tend to be quite expensive. Now, where can you get dice? Well, as I mentioned before, your friendly local gaming store is going to have a massive selection, hopefully. And it's nice to kind of see them in person. I think shopping for dice online, absolutely nothing wrong with it. I have done it in the past. But I tend to fall in love with dice sets when I see them in person. You've also got Kickstarter. Kickstarter is, a crowdfunding website where a lot of D&D products can be, or RPG products, RPG D&D related products can be purchased. Couple of warnings about Kickstarter. You have to be willing to wait for them to arrive. Sometimes you're talking about months, maybe even years for certain things. And the other thing is you have to be okay with the possibility that you might never even get the product. It hasn't happened to me too often, and it's happened to me more with technology than with RPG related products. And one day we'll do my top favorite Kickstarters for D&D stuff that I've done. I've never done dice, so take that as you will. Finally, you've got Chessex. Now, Chessex are, I would say, the best manufacturers. They do resin dice for the most part, a kind of plastic, always very legible, always nicely balanced and just a joy to roll. And they have some absolutely incredible sets. Anything from your, translucent, see-through, opaque, and speckled. Those are the kind of like standard ranges in a myriad of color choices. Then you also have some of their more exotic kind of ones, whether it's marble. There's a scarab line which is absolutely gorgeous. It's almost like has a deep metallic mineral kind of color to it, which is absolutely gorgeous. And those sets will set you back about $10 for a full set. You can also buy them individually, which is nice because you could get a set and then get an extra D20, get some extra d6s. With D&D 5th edition, you have a mechanic called advantage and disadvantage. And this is where having 2 d20s can be very beneficial. Now, in previous editions of D&D, you might have had so many different bonuses that it was a nightmare trying to keep track of everything and doing the math. Nowadays, if, for example, somebody helps you when you're trying to do something, then you might get advantage. If you're trying to convince someone of something and the argument that you actually use is excellent and your DM says, wow, that was brilliant, I think you're more likely to convince them, have yourself advantage. Likewise, disadvantage is a mechanic where if you're less likely to be successful, let's say you're trying to climb but you were recently injured, then your DM might say, well, you have disadvantage. Now here's where the 2d20s come in. So with advantage, you roll 2d20s and you select the highest number. So you are more likely to be successful. With disadvantage, again, you roll 2d20s and you take the lowest number. So you're more likely to be unsuccessful. This is a really nifty mechanic in 5th edition that has solved a lot of issues. And this is one of the reasons, I would say the main reason why you might want 2 dice rather than rolling, having to remember what you rolled and then rolling again. Because the number of times that I've rolled and literally forgotten what I just rolled and then had to roll again is innumerable. So 2d20s, definitely worth it. But those are my go-to for the most part. Dice are something that is necessary for D&D. And some people put a lot of stock into them. They have their favorites. They spend a lot of money on them. Generally speaking, I think we obsess a little bit too much about the dice and how they're going to impact us. But I understand people's joy in getting new sets of dice, rolling them, putting them in dice jail, stuff like that. Thank you so much for listening today. As always, please check out La Victoria Productions on Facebook. We are also on LinkedIn, and you can find Enano LVP on Instagram and Jazzy J Shiro also on Instagram, as well as our producer on at Mouth La Victoria on Twitter. And of course, please, as always, head on over to our website www.lavictoriaproductions.com, where you can check out all the old episodes of Dirty 20, see what we're working on, and check out our podcast, where we just recently did an episode on The Matrix, which was awesome. So yeah, thank you so much for listening, and keep slaying. If you roll the dice and you get all zeros... Sorry.
Don't apologize.
So if you roll a